In this video lecture, I'll be explaining to you what is selection sort algorithm. We'll see what is selection sort, how it actually works, and we'll also learn the algorithm with the help of an example. With that said, hey guys, I'm Amir Salam, and on this particular channel, I upload content related to coding, technology, and self-development. If that is something within your interest, then consider subscribing to my channel. Now, without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. First of all, what is selection sort algorithm? Well, straightforward, it is a comparison based sorting algorithm. What selection sort does is, if you provide an array or list of elements, first it divides this list into an unordered or unsorted sublist and sorted sublist. Now, based on the order which you provide, right, either ascending or descending order, it selects the most minimum or the most maximum element from the unsorted sublist and places them in the right position of the ordered sublist or sorted sublist. So this process continues until we obtain a properly ordered or sorted list. So this is basically what is selection sort algorithm. Even the name, right, selection sort algorithm, the name selection, it is given to it because how carefully it selects element from the unsorted list and places them into the sorted list or sorted sublist. So I hope you have a very basic understanding of what is selection sort algorithm now. In order to have a much clear picture of selection sort algorithm, I'll explain it to you with a very simple example. Suppose I've taken an array of size 4. As you can see, the size of this array is 4 and the elements are 3, 7, 1 and 4. Now I have to arrange this array or sort this array in ascending order. Okay, in order to arrange these elements in ascending order, first I'll start traversing this array, and the very first element, I'll assume it to be the most minimum element of the array. So assuming 3 to be the most minimum element of the array, I'll start comparing 3 with the rest of the array, and I'll check if there is any other element existing which is lesser than 3. First is I'll check with 7. Is 7 lesser than 3? The condition is false. Next I'll move on to next element, that is 1. Is 1 lesser than 3? True. So what I'll do is, now I have to swap the elements 3 and 1 and interchange their positions. So in the next, what happens is, after swapping in the next iteration, this is the array which I'll be having. Now the I value will be incremented from 0 to I value, now it is 1. So as you can see, we have interchanged or exchanged the position of 1 and 3. Now since I value is 1, I have to start comparing from index 1. So I'll check if there is any other element existing which is lesser than 7. So I'll move on to the next element. I can see that 3 exists here and 3 is lesser than 7. This condition satisfies. So what I'll do is I'll swap these two elements 7 and 3 and I'll move on to next iteration. Now I value becomes 2. I have to start comparison from index number 2. I'll check if there is any other element existing which is lesser than 7. So I'll see that yes, 4 exists which is lesser than 7. The condition is again satisfied. So what I'll do is I'll swap 7 and 4, and after swapping, this is the array which I'll get finally. So as you can see, this array is sorted in ascending order, that is 1, 3, 4 and 7. So this is basically how selection sort algorithm works. As you can see, the selection sort algorithm selects the most minimum element and replaces it with the ith position. Okay, it swaps them so that it will obtain a proper ordered sorted list. So in order to make this algorithm much more easier for you to understand, what I've done is I've divided these steps into 6 steps. Okay, first is, in order to traverse this entire array, I have to have a for loop, right? Now this for loop must start from 0th element of an array and it has to go up until n-1. Now why n-1, you can ask? Well, as I've informed it in the previous video of bubble sort also, we'll go until n-1 because by the time we reach the end of the array by sorting each element, the last element will automatically be sorted. So no need of sorting the last element, hence we'll be going up until I is less than n-1. So the very first step is we have to have a for loop to traverse the entire array, which will start from I is equals to 0 and it will end when I is less than n-1. Now the next step is we have to initialize the index of the most minimum element. So we have to initialize the index of most minimum element to the value which is in I. Okay, so this is initializing it. Third step is, in order to compare the ith element with all other element of the array, we have to have another inner for loop. Now there is a small twist with this. This inner for loop will start from I plus 1th position. Now why I plus 1th position? Suppose I value is 1. If I have to start from ith position itself, means I'll be comparing ith element with itself. So in order to reduce this execution, in order to prevent comparing element with itself, what we'll do is we'll start from the position I plus 1, so that I'll be comparing elements which are after the ith position of the ith position in the array. So hence we'll be starting from j starts from I plus 1 and it goes on until the end of the array, as we have to check each and every element of the array. So once we enter the inner for loop, we'll start comparing the element, right? We'll start comparing if the jth element is lesser than the most minimum element. If the jth element is lesser than the most minimum element, what are we supposed to do? We have to change the index of the most minimum element to the index of j. As you can see, this index of the most minimum element will be updated to the index number of j. So this is how it is happening. Now this might seem a little confusing to you right now, but trust me, once we start writing this in, once we start converting this to code, you'll have a clear understanding of selection sort algorithm. So this is how it happens, and once we are out of the inner for loop, we will swap the element in the ith position with the element of which is the most a minimum or the most maximum in the array. So after swapping, and we'll again get back to the outer for loop, and this process continues or repeats until we obtain a properly ordered or sorted array or sorted list of elements. So this is how the selection sort algorithm works. Now you might have a little bit of confusion here and there. No problem, we'll try to trace this entire algorithm in code. So let us remember the very first step. The very first step was to have a for loop to traverse the entire array. So I'll be writing a for loop for I will start from 0 until we reach I is less than n minus 1. Okay, after each for loop execution, we have to increment the value of I. In the second step, as you can see, we have to initialize the value of the most minimum, in the value which is the index of the most minimum element. So what I'll do is I'll initialize I min, index of the most minimum element, to the value of I. Now the third step is to have an inner for loop to compare the elements. Okay, so for the inner for loop, I'll go with for j must start from I plus 1 in order to prevent comparing the jth element with itself. So what we'll do is we'll start the inner for loop from the start the comparison from the very next element, okay, until j is less than n, as we are supposed to compare each and every element of the particular array, and we'll keep on incrementing the value of j after each iteration. Now we have the outer for loop, we have initialized the index of the most minimum element, we have also entered into the inner for loop. After this, we have to start comparing the jth element with the most minimum element in the array. So what I'll do is I'll have an if condition over here. If array of j, that is jth position, is less than array of I min, if this condition is satisfied, then we have to update the index of most minimum element to that of value of j. Okay, so what happens is I min is equals to j. Okay, now this is the entire selection sort algorithm. Okay, selection sort algorithm. Now what happens here is, sorry, I forgot to swap these elements. In order to swap these elements, I have to use another variable, that is a temporary variable. So I'll have a temporary variable. Temporary variable will store the value which is in a of I. Okay, now we'll change the value which is in a of I to the most minimum value of the most minimum element. Then again, in the value of most minimum element, we'll put on the value which was in the temp variable. So by this we'll be able to swap the most minimum element with the ith element. So after repeating this for n number of times, we will obtain a properly sorted array. Now let us trace this. I know you might have a little bit of confusion here. We'll understand this algorithm once again with the help of tracing it with the help of a very small example. Let us take an array of size 4, okay, and the elements are suppose 3, 0 and 2 and 1. Okay, if these are the elements, the index number is 0, 1, 2 and 3. Now what we'll do is, I initially, these are the variables, okay, initially I is given value 0, okay, and n minus 1 is how much? 3. Is 0 less than 3? That is true, hence we'll be getting into the outer for loop. Now again, I min will be given the value which is 5, that is 0, okay. Now again, now the value after entering the inner for loop, j becomes 0 plus 1 is 1. Is 1 lesser than 4? True. We'll enter the inner for loop. We'll check. What happens here is a of j value is 1, a of j is 0. Is 0 less than a of I min? What is I min 0? That is a of I min is 3. Is 0 less than 3? The condition is true. So what happens is, I min value must be updated to the value of j. So I min value will be updated to 1. After this, we'll again get back to the inner for loop. Okay. Now the j value will be incremented to 2. Is 2 less than 4? The condition is true. We'll again enter inner for loop. We'll check a of j, that is a of 2 is now 2. Next, a of I min is 1. Now what is a of I min? That is 2. Is 2 lesser than a of I min? False. Hence what will happen? We'll ignore this part and we'll jump back to the again the for loop with incrementing j value to 3. Now j value is 3. What is a of 3? A of 3 is 1. We'll check if a of j is less than a of I min. Now what is a of I min? A of I min is 0. That is a of I min is 1. Is 1 lesser than 0? False. Again we'll be exiting out by incrementing j value 4. Now is 4 less than 4? False. Hence we'll be exiting out of this inner for loop. Now we'll start swapping. Temp is equals to a of I. Now what is value of I? 0. A of I is 3. Next we'll be changing the value of a of I to a of I min. I min is now 1. A of I min is 0. So we'll be changing value of 3 to 0. Next a of I min is 1, that is temp 3. Now the value of 0 will be changed with 3 to 1. This is what we'll get in the first pass of I. When I is equals to 0, this is what we get. After this, we'll return back to the outer for loop. Outer for loop. Now I value will be incremented to 1. Again, we'll enter into the outer for loop. I min value will be set to the value of I. Now I min is again 1. We'll get into this. J value is 1 plus 1. Now j value is 2. Next is 2 lesser than 4. The value is true. Again we'll enter the inner for loop. We'll check if a of j. Now what is a of j? A of j is 2. Is 2 lesser than a of I min? What is a of I min? 1. A of I min is, I min value is 1. A of 1 is 3. Is 2 lesser than 3? The condition is true. So we'll again try to will again we have to update the imin value to j. So imin value is now updated to how much? Value of j, which is 2. Again, we'll get back to the inner for loop. Now j value is again incremented to 3. We'll check a of 3. A of 3 is what? 1. A of 3 is 1. Is 1 lesser than a of imin? What is imin value? 2. Is 1 lesser than 2? The condition is true. Hence again imin value will be incremented to 3. Now after this, again j value will be incremented to 4. We'll check, is 4 lesser than 4? False. Hence we'll be exiting out of the inner for loop. Now we'll again start the swapping procedure. Now temp value is a of I. Now what is I? I value is 1, that is a of 1 is 0. Temp value is 0. Temp value is 3. Now a of I will be replaced with value which is in a of imin. What is a of I? A of I is 3, right? 3 must be replaced with a of imin. What is value of a of imin? That is 3. So instead of 3, we'll be writing it 1. Next, a of imin, value of imin is 3. A of 3 will be getting value which is in temp, that is 3. So as you can see, this is the array we obtain when the value of I is 1. After this procedure, we'll get back to the outer for loop and the value of I will be incremented to 2. Now we'll see if 2 is lesser than 3. Yes, it is. We'll enter the outer for loop. Here again we have to update the value of imin to I, which is now 2. We'll again get into j inner for loop. Now the j value will be 2 plus 1, 3. We'll see, is 3 lesser than 4? Yes, it is true. We'll enter the inner for loop. We'll check a of j, which is a of 3. A of 3 is 3. Is 3 lesser than a of imin? A of imin is 2. Is 3 lesser than 2? False. Hence will come. Now j value will be incremented to 4. Is 4 lesser than 4? False. We'll exit the inner for loop. We'll again swap the element which is 3 here itself. Nothing will change. So at the very end, we'll again get back to the outer for loop where the value of I will be incremented to 3. And after checking that 3 is not lesser than 3, we'll be exiting out of this entire block. So by the end, we'll obtain this array which is sorted, that is 0, 1, 2 and 3. So this is how selection sort algorithm works. In simple words, selection sort algorithm will be playing with the index of the array directly and the elements within that index indirectly. So this was all about selection sort algorithm. I hope I have explained it to you. If you liked this video, then consider hitting the like button. If you think this channel is worth subscribing, then also consider subscribing to my channel. So that's all for this particular video. See you in another one. Till then, bye bye.